Ladies and gentlemen, if you are enjoying my videos, please click the like button. It is the only way the YouTube algorithm really notices me. I would be very grateful to you. As the storyteller wandered deeper into the forest in search of berries, the dense foliage seemed to close in around him, obscuring the path he had followed. With each step, the shadows grew longer, and the sunlight filtering through the canopy became more sparse. Eventually, he stumbled upon a clearing where 4 abandoned cottages stood in solemn silence, their wooden frames weathered and worn by time. Intrigued yet wary, he approached the nearest cottage, its windows boarded up and its door barely hanging on its hinges. With a cautious tug, the door creaked open, revealing a dim interior adorned with cobwebs and dust. Despite the eerie atmosphere, exhaustion gnawed at him, urging him to seek refuge from the encroaching darkness. With hesitant steps, he ventured inside, the floorboards groaning under his weight. The air was musty and thick, tinged with the scent of decay. His heart raced as he scanned the room, his eyes lingering on the rusted remnants of furniture and the tattered curtains swaying in the faint breeze. Choosing the least dilapidated corner, he settled down for the night, his senses alert to every creak and whisper of the surrounding forest. Outside, the rustling of leaves and the distant hoot of an owl filled the air, adding to the sense of isolation that enveloped him. As the night wore on, sleep eluded him, his mind plagued by haunting whispers and imagined shadows dancing in the corners of the room. Yet, despite the darkness pressing in on all sides, a sliver of hope remained, a belief that dawn would eventually break, dispelling the shadows and guiding him safely back to the light. In the dead of night, a powerful urge jolted him awake, sending a shiver down his spine. His eyes, heavy with sleep, slowly adjusted to the dimness of the room. Through the dusty window pane, he caught a glimpse of something stirring in the darkness outside, a looming silhouette, its form massive and indistinct. Frozen in fear, he watched as the creature stood perfectly still, its gaze fixed upon him with an intensity that sent a chill coursing through his veins. For a moment that stretched into eternity, they were locked in a silent exchange, his heart pounding in his chest like a drumbeat echoing in the stillness of the night. Then, as suddenly as it had appeared, the creature turned and vanished into the enveloping shadows of the forest, leaving him alone with the eerie silence that seemed to linger in its wake. Trembling, he struggled to make sense of what he had just witnessed, his mind racing with questions that had no answers. Was it a trick of the imagination, born from the depths of his sleep-deprived mind? Or had he truly come face to face with something otherworldly, a denizen of the forest that defied explanation? As he pondered these unsettling thoughts, the first light of dawn began to creep over the horizon, casting long shadows that stretched like fingers across the forest floor. With a heavy heart and a lingering sense of unease, he knew that he would carry the memory of that night with him long after he had left the abandoned cottage behind. For in that fleeting moment of encounter, he had glimpsed a world beyond the realm of his understanding, a world where darkness and mystery held sway, and where the line between reality and imagination blurred into obscurity. As the night wore on, a creeping weakness began to overtake him, like tendrils of darkness coiling around his limbs and sapping his strength. With each passing moment, it became harder to keep his eyes open, his mind clouded by a fog of exhaustion that seemed to swallow him whole. Then, without warning, his legs gave way beneath him, sending him plummeting into the depths of unconsciousness. Hours slipped by unnoticed, lost in the abyss of sleep, until finally, as the sun reached its zenith and the world stirred back to life, he stirred from his slumber. Blinking groggily, he found himself lying on the cold, hard floor of the abandoned cottage, the faint traces of daylight filtering through the cracks in the walls. His body ached with a dull, throbbing pain, his head heavy with the weight of unanswered questions and unspoken fears. With a start, he realized that he had lost an entire day, his memory shrouded in a haze of confusion and disorientation. Panic surged through him like a tidal wave, threatening to overwhelm him with its sheer force, as he struggled to piece together the events of the night before. Had it all been a dream, a trick of the mind brought on by fatigue and hunger, or had something more sinister taken place, something beyond the realm of rational explanation? With a sinking heart, he knew that he may never find the answers he sought, that the truth would remain forever beyond his grasp. But as he rose unsteadily to his feet, Determination burned bright in his eyes, a flickering flame of defiance against the encroaching darkness. For though he may never understand the mysteries that lurked in the shadows of the forest, he refused to be cowed by their presence, to surrender to the fear that threatened to consume him whole. With each step forward, he vowed to face whatever trials lay ahead with courage and resolve, to confront the unknown with an unwavering heart and an unyielding spirit. For in the end, he knew that it was not the darkness itself that he feared, but the power it held over him, a power that could only be broken by the light of his own inner strength. With a heavy heart and limbs laden with exhaustion, he mustered the strength to leave the desolate cottage behind. Each step felt like a battle against gravity itself, as if the very earth sought to drag him down into its depths. Yet, despite the weight of his weariness, he pressed on, driven by a singular purpose to find his way back home. Emerging from the shadowy embrace of the forest, he stumbled onto the asphalt of the deserted road, the distant hum of passing cars a faint echo in the stillness of the morning air. It was a lonely stretch of highway, stretching out before him like a ribbon of asphalt winding its way through the vast expanse of wilderness. Though the journey ahead seemed daunting, with miles of road stretching endlessly into the horizon, he refused to falter. With each step, he felt a glimmer of hope kindle within him, a beacon of light guiding him through the darkness that threatened to engulf him. As the hours slipped by, he trudged onward, the rhythmic pounding of his footsteps a steady cadence against the silence of the surrounding landscape. Gradually, the world around him began to stir to life, the distant chirping of birds and the rustling of leaves serving as a reminder that he was not alone in this vast, untamed wilderness. Finally, after what felt like an eternity of walking, he spotted the welcome sight of civilization on the horizon, the familiar skyline of his hometown rising like a phoenix from the ashes of his ordeal. With renewed determination, he quickened his pace, each step bringing him closer to the sanctuary of home. As he reached the outskirts of the town, a wave of relief washed over him, filling him with a sense of triumph that banished the last vestiges of doubt from his mind. With one final burst of energy, he hailed a passing car, hitching a ride back to the comfort and safety of his own doorstep. And though the memory of his harrowing ordeal lingered in the recesses of his mind, he knew that he had emerged from the darkness stronger and wiser than before. For he had faced his fears head-on, braving the unknown with courage and resilience, and emerged victorious in the end. As the events of the previous night replayed in his mind like a haunting melody, the storyteller couldn't shake the unsettling feeling that gripped his soul. It was as though some unseen force had ensnared him in its web, draining him of vitality and leaving behind a hollow shell of his former self. With a shiver, he entertained the chilling possibility that the mysterious creature he had encountered had wielded powers beyond his comprehension. In the harsh light of day, he found himself grappling with a profound sense of unease, as if the very fabric of his reality had been warped by the encounter. The memory of the creature's piercing gaze bore into his consciousness like a dagger, leaving him vulnerable and exposed to the shadows that lurked at the edges of his mind. As he struggled to make sense of the inexplicable, a terrifying realization dawned upon him that he had been under the creature's spell, a puppet dancing to the whims of a malevolent puppeteer. It was a sobering thought, one that filled him with a bone-deep dread, unlike anything he had ever experienced before. For days afterwards, he found himself haunted by thoughts of death and despair, each moment weighed down by the oppressive burden of his own mortality. The specter of suicide loomed large in his mind, a siren song tempting him to surrender to the darkness that threatened to consume him whole. But even in his darkest hour, a glimmer of hope flickered in the depths of his despair. With each passing day, he found solace in the simple act of breathing, a reminder that he was still alive, still fighting against the forces that sought to drag him down into the abyss. And though the scars of his ordeal would linger for years to come, he refused to let them define him. For he had stared into the abyss and emerged stronger on the other side, a testament to the indomitable spirit that burned within him. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting its final rays of golden light across the vast expanse of the taiga, the storyteller and his companion, a seasoned woodsman turned laborer, made their way back to camp. With them trotted a faithful canine companion, her keen senses attuned to the shifting rhythms of the wilderness. As dusk settled like a heavy blanket over the forest, the taiga stirred to life in a symphony of sounds. The rustle of leaves in the gentle breeze, the distant call of a nocturnal bird, and the soft padding of paws against the forest floor created a serene backdrop to their journey. The woodsman, his weathered face etched with lines of experience, cast a practiced eye over their surroundings, his senses finely attuned to the subtle nuances of the taiga. He pointed out signs of nocturnal activity, a shadow flitting through the trees, the faint glint of eyes in the darkness as the forest began its transition from the diurnal bustle to the nocturnal realm. The storyteller, his senses heightened by the palpable energy of the forest at nightfall, felt a thrill of anticipation coursing through his veins. Here, in the heart of the taiga, he was keenly aware of his own insignificance amidst the vastness of nature's domain, yet he felt an undeniable sense of connection to the untamed wilderness that surrounded him. As they trudged onward through the gathering darkness, the woodsman shared tales of his days as a hunter, recounting encounters with elusive prey and brushes with danger in the unforgiving wilderness. His words painted vivid images of life in the taiga, where survival depended on instinct, skill, and a healthy respect for the natural world. With each step, the forest seemed to come alive around them, its secrets whispered on the wind and written in the dappled patterns of moonlight that filtered through the dense canopy overhead. And as they finally reached the welcoming glow of their campfire, the storyteller couldn't help but feel a profound sense of gratitude for the opportunity to witness the untamed beauty of the taiga after dark. As the storyteller and his companion trekked through the dense undergrowth of the taiga, their path illuminated only by the soft glow of the setting sun filtering through the towering trees, the forest seemed to hold its breath in anticipation of the coming night. Amidst the tranquil beauty of their surroundings, a sense of unease began to creep over the storyteller, a feeling that they were not alone in the vast wilderness. Glancing furtively around, he caught sight of a shadowy figure moving stealthily through the trees, keeping pace with their own journey. Heart pounding in his chest, the storyteller hesitated, uncertain whether to call out or to continue on their path in silence. But before he could make a decision, fate intervened in the form of a stray root hidden beneath the blanket of fallen leaves. With a sharp cry of surprise, the storyteller stumbled forward, his foot catching on the hidden obstacle and sending him sprawling to the forest floor. Pain shot through his leg as he landed awkwardly, his ankle twisting beneath him. Clutching his injured limb, he glanced up in alarm, only to find the shadowy figure looming over him in the gloom. It was their silent companion, revealed now in the dim light of dusk, a fellow traveler whose intentions remained shrouded in mystery. With a mixture of relief and apprehension, the storyteller watched as the figure approached, offering a hand to help him rise. As he struggled to his feet, leaning heavily on his newfound ally for support, the storyteller couldn't shake the feeling of unease that lingered in the air. Who was this stranger, and what had drawn them to this remote corner of the taiga? With each step they took towards camp, the questions multiplied, adding an undercurrent of tension to their already precarious situation. As the storyteller struggled to regain his footing, the former hunter sprang into action, his keen eyes scanning the forest floor for a suitable makeshift walking stick. With a swift and practiced motion, he plucked a sturdy branch from the underbrush, its rough bark offering a reassuring grip for the injured traveler. Handing the improvised cane to the storyteller with a nod of encouragement, the worker then insisted on relieving him of his burdens, the weight of his backpack and the cumbersome gear that hung from his belt. Despite the storyteller's protests, the worker's determination brooked no argument, and soon the traveler found himself unburdened of his heavy load. With a grateful smile and a muttered word of thanks, the storyteller accepted the worker's assistance, leaning heavily on the sturdy branch as they resumed their journey towards camp. Though his pride smarted at the thought of relying on another's aid, he couldn't deny the relief of being relieved of his cumbersome pack, especially in his current state of injury. As they trudged onward through the gathering darkness, the camaraderie between the two men began to deepen, forged in the crucible of shared hardship and mutual reliance. Though they had started their journey as little more than strangers, they now walked side by side as companions, bound together by the common goal of reaching safety before the night fully descended upon the unforgiving wilderness of the taiga. As the storyteller trudged on, leaning heavily on the makeshift walking stick provided by the compassionate worker, Each step seemed to amplify the searing pain radiating from his injured leg. With every movement, a sharp jolt shot through his body, a relentless reminder of his vulnerability in the heart of the unforgiving wilderness. Despite his best efforts to conceal his discomfort, his grimaces betrayed the agony he endured with each faltering step. The once promising path ahead now stretched out before him like an endless gauntlet, each stride a test of endurance and resilience against the relentless onslaught of pain. Yet, amid the throes of his suffering, a flicker of determination burned within him, driving him forward through the darkness. He refused to succumb to the physical torment that threatened to engulf him, drawing strength from the indomitable spirit that had brought him to these remote reaches of the taiga in the first place. With gritted teeth and a steely resolve, he pressed on, his every movement a testament to the unyielding human spirit that perseveres even in the face of seemingly insurmountable odds. Though the path ahead may be fraught with obstacles and uncertainties, he remained undaunted, his resolve unshaken by the trials that beset him. For every agonizing step he took, he drew closer to the safety of camp, where rest and respite awaited him. With each passing moment, the distant glow of the campfire beckoned to him, like a beacon of hope in the vast expanse of the wilderness, promising solace and sanctuary from the perils of the night. With every agonizing step, the storyteller's resilience began to wane until, finally, he could no longer bear the weight of his own pain. Collapsing under the strain of his injury, he sank to his knees, his breath ragged and labored, his body racked with exhaustion. It was a humbling moment, a stark reminder of his own vulnerability in the face of nature's relentless onslaught. As he crumpled to the ground, the compassionate worker hastened to his side, offering words of encouragement and support. With a steady hand and a reassuring presence, he helped the storyteller to his feet once more, shouldering the burden of his belongings without hesitation. Together they stood in the darkness, two solitary figures against the backdrop of the vast, untamed wilderness. Despite the overwhelming odds stacked against them, they refused to yield to despair, drawing strength from the unspoken bond that united them in their shared struggle. With the weight of the world lifted from his shoulders, the storyteller felt a surge of gratitude wash over him, filling him with renewed determination to press onward. With the compassionate worker by his side, he knew that he was not alone, that together they could overcome whatever obstacles lay in their path. And so, with the storyteller leaning heavily on his newfound ally for support, they resumed their journey through the night, their footsteps echoing through the silent expanse of the taiga. Though the road ahead may be long and treacherous, they faced it with unwavering resolve, knowing that together they were capable of weathering any storm. Feeling the sharp sting of pain coursing through her injured leg, the storyteller hesitantly reached out to the hunter, her silent plea for assistance hanging heavy in the air. With practiced hands, the hunter swiftly fashioned a makeshift bandage from the mesh of his backpack, carefully securing it around her wounded limb in a gesture of quiet solidarity. Turning to face her with a mixture of concern and determination etched into his weather-beaten features, he posed the crucial question: could she continue? Though every fiber of her being screamed out in protest, the storyteller gritted her teeth against the searing agony, steeling herself for the arduous journey ahead. With a defiant nod, she summoned the last vestiges of her strength, her resolve unyielding in the face of adversity. Each step was a battle against the relentless ache that threatened to consume her, but she refused to succumb to defeat, her determination burning bright amidst the encroaching darkness. And so, side by side, they pressed onward into the heart of the night, their progress slow but steady. Every movement was a testament to their unwavering resilience, a silent vow to persevere against all odds. Though the path ahead may be fraught with uncertainty, they faced it together, bound by a shared sense of purpose and an unbreakable bond forged in the crucible of adversity. With every painstaking step, the storyteller leaned heavily on the makeshift crutch, her breaths labored and ragged as she pushed herself to continue. The hunter strode ahead, a silent sentinel guiding their path, his watchful gaze flickering back to her with each hesitant movement. The pain, once a mere whisper, now roared to life with a ferocity that threatened to overwhelm her. Each footfall sent shockwaves of agony coursing through her battered leg, a relentless reminder of her tenuous grasp on the thin thread of endurance. Yet, despite the mounting torment, she refused to yield to the siren call of defeat. With every ounce of her being, she clung to the flickering ember of hope that burned bright within her, a beacon of resilience in the encroaching darkness. The hunter's steady presence offered a semblance of solace in the midst of her turmoil, a silent reassurance that she was not alone in her struggle. His unwavering commitment to their shared journey spurred her onward, a silent testament to the unbreakable bond that bound them together in their moment of adversity. And so they pressed on into the enveloping night, their progress slow but resolute. Each passing moment was a testament to their indomitable spirit, a silent vow to defy the odds and emerge triumphant against the relentless tide of hardship. Despite the intensifying pain, the storyteller experienced a peculiar sensation, as if someone were cradling her, lifting her ever so slightly above the earth. There were no tangible touches, no physical presence she could discern, yet the burden of her steps seemed to lighten, as if the weight of her suffering had been momentarily eased. It was an ethereal sensation, one that defied logical explanation yet enveloped her with a comforting embrace. With each forward motion, she felt as though unseen hands were guiding her, offering silent encouragement to persevere despite the relentless aches that threatened to consume her. It was as though the very fabric of the forest itself had rallied to her aid, offering solace in the midst of her torment. Though she could not see her invisible benefactor, she felt their presence like a gentle breeze, whispering words of support that buoyed her flagging spirit. In that fleeting moment, amidst the darkness and despair, she found herself filled with a renewed sense of determination. For even in the depths of her suffering, she was not alone. With each faltering step, she drew strength from the unseen forces that guided her, forging ahead with a resilience born of sheer willpower and an unwavering belief in the power of the human spirit. Turning her gaze to the left, she beheld a semi-transparent entity, humanoid in form, with a visage veiled by strands of luminous hair and eyes aglow with an otherworldly light. The creature towered over her by at least a head's length, its ethereal hands encircling her waist with a touch that elicited neither aggression nor malice. In the eerie glow of the forest, the figure appeared as if woven from moonlight and shadow, its features both familiar and alien, haunting yet strangely comforting. Though its form was indistinct, its presence radiated a sense of tranquility, as if it were a guardian spirit watching over her in her hour of need. As she gazed into its luminous eyes, she sensed a depth of understanding that transcended words, a silent communion between two souls bound by circumstance. There was no need for spoken reassurances in the presence of this enigmatic being. She found solace and acceptance, a silent acknowledgement of her struggle and a silent promise of support. Despite the strangeness of the encounter, she felt no fear, only a profound sense of gratitude for the unseen aid that had guided her through the darkness. With a heart heavy with emotion, she offered a silent word of thanks to the mysterious entity, knowing in her heart that she was not alone in her journey through the shadows of the night. As the storyteller walked with the support of the entity, she felt the burden of pain gradually easing, as if the ethereal touch of her companion possessed a healing power beyond comprehension. With each step, the weight upon her injured leg diminished, replaced by a sense of buoyancy and relief she had not known since the moment of her injury. Raising her head, she met the gaze of the entity, and to her astonishment, its features softened into a gentle smile, a gesture that conveyed reassurance and empathy in equal measure. In that enigmatic expression, she sensed a depth of understanding that transcended language, a silent acknowledgement of her struggle and a silent promise of companionship through the trials that lay ahead. With a nod of its head, as if to affirm their unspoken connection, the entity continued to guide her through the labyrinthine paths of the forest, its presence a beacon of light amidst the encroaching darkness. In its smile and nod, she found not only solace but also a glimmer of hope, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, there are forces beyond reckoning that watch over us with care and compassion. Emerging into a clearing, she beheld the entity, adorned in loose-fitting trousers and a caftan with long sleeves, a curious sight against the backdrop of the wilderness. It was a vision that defied the conventional understanding of the forest's inhabitants, imbuing the encounter with an air of mystery and intrigue. As the hunter turned to notice the presence of this enigmatic being, there was a distinct lack of fear in his demeanor, a testament to the resilience forged by a life spent navigating the untamed expanses of the taiga. With a steadfast gaze and unwavering determination, he pressed forward, his actions speaking volumes of a silent agreement between man and spirit, forged in the crucible of shared adversity. In that moment, amidst the rustling of leaves and the whispers of the wind, there existed a harmony between the earthly and the ethereal, a convergence of worlds that transcended the boundaries of human understanding. For the storyteller, it was a revelation, a glimpse into a realm where fear gave way to acceptance, and where the extraordinary became an integral part of the fabric of existence. With each step taken in the company of her mysterious companion, she felt a sense of kinship that surpassed the confines of language and culture. Together they traversed the wilderness, bound by a silent pact of mutual respect and understanding, as the hunter led the way with quiet confidence, and the entity offered its ethereal support, a guardian in the shadows of the forest. As they neared the camp, the storyteller felt the gentle release of the entity's grasp, as if bidding her farewell with a silent reverence. Stepping back a meter, it seemed to dissolve into the shadows, melting seamlessly into the dense foliage of the forest. The hunter, acknowledging the presence with a nod of gratitude, uttered words of thanks that echoed through the stillness of the night. In a moment of profound recognition, he bestowed upon the entity a title befitting its mysterious nature, the master of the taiga. With the exchange of unspoken sentiments and the passing of fleeting glances, the encounter came to an end, leaving behind a lingering sense of wonder and awe. For the storyteller, it was a moment etched in the depths of memory, a testament to the profound mysteries that lurk within the heart of the wilderness, waiting to be discovered by those who dare to venture beyond the realm of the known. Gathered around the crackling fire, the storyteller and the hunter joined the rest of the group, their faces illuminated by the flickering glow of the flames. With bated breath, they recounted the harrowing events of their journey through the dense undergrowth of the taiga, weaving a tale of unexpected encounters and mysterious interventions. As their words wove a tapestry of wonder and disbelief, the others listened intently, their expressions a mixture of awe and incredulity. The notion of a benevolent entity lurking in the depths of the forest seemed both fantastical and hauntingly real, casting a spell of curiosity over the assembled company. With each detail shared, the atmosphere around the campfire crackled with anticipation, as if the very air pulsed with the energy of the untold mysteries of the wilderness. It was a story that defied explanation, yet resonated with a primal truth that seemed to stir something deep within each listener's soul. As the tale drew to a close, a sense of wonder lingered in the air, mingling with the tendrils of smoke that rose into the starlit sky. In the quiet moments that followed, the storyteller and the hunter exchanged knowing glances, their shared experience forging a bond that transcended the boundaries of ordinary existence. And so, beneath the watchful gaze of the moon and the whispering pines, they sat together by the fire, united by the inexplicable magic of the taiga and the enduring mystery of the unseen forces that dwell within its ancient depths. In the year 1990, our storyteller found herself immersed in the rugged landscapes of the taiga, working as part of a 6-person geological team. Their camp nestled along the banks of a mountain stream, where the babbling waters provided a soothing soundtrack to their wilderness expedition. Setting up camp was a ritual they had mastered through countless expeditions. 3 sturdy tents were pitched with precision, forming a semicircle that embraced the heart of their temporary home, a central area cleared for the communal fire. Here, beneath the sprawling canopy of the taiga, they would gather each evening to share stories, laughter, and the warmth of camaraderie. Surrounded by towering pines and the scent of earth and pine needles, their camp became a sanctuary amidst the untamed wilderness. Each member of the team played a vital role in its upkeep, from gathering firewood to ensuring the tents were secure against the elements. As night fell and the stars emerged like pinpricks of light in the velvety sky, the crackling flames of their campfire cast dancing shadows on the surrounding trees. It was a scene that spoke of both the raw beauty and the inherent challenges of life in the taiga, a place where nature reigned supreme, and humanity was but a humble guest in its vast domain. After 2 weeks of intense fieldwork, news crackled over the radio informing them of the Shilka River's rising water levels and the urgent need to replenish their dwindling supplies. With this crucial task at hand, the leader of the expedition, along with a student and 2 laborers, set off for the base camp, leaving our storyteller behind with her fellow female geologist. As the rest of the team departed, a sense of responsibility settled over them, mingled with a tinge of apprehension at being left behind in the vast expanse of the taiga. Yet they were seasoned professionals, well-versed in the rigors of fieldwork, and they wasted no time in preparing for their temporary solitude. With meticulous planning, they assessed their remaining provisions, rationing food and prioritizing essentials for the days ahead. Despite the isolation, they maintained a sense of camaraderie, drawing strength from their shared purpose and the unyielding beauty of their surroundings. As the distant rumble of the departing team faded into the wilderness, they embraced the solitude, knowing that their work was crucial to the success of the expedition. With determination in their hearts and the vast expanse of the taiga stretching out before them, they stood ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. As evening descended, a fierce wind swept through the taiga, its howling breath weaving through the forest, stirring the trees into a wild dance. The once tranquil woods now echoed with the ominous symphony of creaks and groans as the mighty conifers swayed and bent under the force of nature's fury. Amidst this tumultuous orchestra, an eerie stillness settled over the landscape, as if every living creature held its breath in reverent awe of the elemental power unfurling around them. The rustling leaves whispered secrets of ancient forests, while the branches thrashed and lashed out against the encroaching darkness. In the midst of this tempest, the 2 geologists sought refuge in the sturdy confines of their tent, its canvas walls billowing and snapping in the wind like a ship's sails at sea. Inside, the dim glow of their lantern cast elongated shadows that danced and flickered across the fabric, painting a scene of both comfort and unease. As the night wore on, the wind's howl grew louder, rattling the tent poles and testing the limits of their shelter. Yet, despite the relentless assault of the elements, they found solace in each other's presence, drawing strength from their shared resilience in the face of nature's awesome power. And so, beneath the canopy of swirling shadows and roaring winds, they weathered the storm together, bound by a common purpose and an unyielding determination to persevere. The sky darkened as leaden clouds gathered ominously overhead, foreboding the imminent arrival of a tempest. Suddenly, without warning, a fierce wind swept through the forest, bending trees and stirring up a cacophony of rustling leaves. Then, just as abruptly as it had begun, the wind ceased, leaving an eerie calm in its wake. In the brief interlude of stillness, a bolt of lightning slashed across the sky, illuminating the landscape in a blinding flash of white light. In its aftermath, the heavens opened up, unleashing a torrential downpour that transformed the tranquil mountain stream into a raging torrent. The rain fell in sheets, drumming against the forest floor with a relentless intensity. The once peaceful brook swelled and surged, its waters frothing and churning as it swept boulders and debris downstream. Within moments, the campsite was inundated, the tents swallowed up by the rising floodwaters. As the deluge raged on, the geologists scrambled to salvage what they could, their efforts hampered by the relentless assault of wind and rain. Despite their best efforts, their belongings were soon swept away by the raging current, lost amidst the tumultuous waters. In the midst of chaos, they clung to each other, seeking refuge from the storm within the fragile sanctuary of their tent. With each deafening clap of thunder and blinding flash of lightning, they braced themselves against the fury of the elements, their spirits tested but unbroken. And so, as nature unleashed its wrath upon the forest, the 2 geologists found themselves at the mercy of the tempest, their survival hanging in the balance amidst the tumult of wind and water. The frantic scramble to salvage supplies amid the onslaught of the storm was a harrowing ordeal for the narrator and Lida, the fellow geologist. With the relentless rain pounding down around them, they battled against the elements, their determination matched only by the ferocity of the tempest. Each step through the sodden earth felt like a struggle against the very forces of nature themselves. Rain-soaked and shivering, they trudged back and forth between the rapidly flooding campsite and their tent perched precariously on higher ground. Their hands numb and fingers stiff with cold, they fought to secure their provisions, hauling them one by one to the relative safety of their shelter. With every load carried, their exhaustion grew, yet they pressed on, driven by the urgent need to preserve what little they could salvage. As they worked tirelessly against the backdrop of thunder and lightning, their spirits wavered, tested by the relentless onslaught of wind and rain. But amidst the chaos and uncertainty, they found solace in each other's company, drawing strength from their shared struggle against the fury of the storm. Finally, as the last of the provisions were safely stowed away, they collapsed onto the damp floor of their tent, their bodies weary and minds weary from the ordeal. Despite their exhaustion, a sense of relief washed over them, knowing that they had done all they could to weather the storm. As the storm raged outside, the narrator tended to the brazier, its feeble flames struggling against the onslaught of wind and rain. In the midst of this tempest, a sound cut through the chaos, a sound so incongruous that it seemed to defy explanation. The unmistakable cry of a baby pierced the howling wind, echoing through the desolate landscape with haunting clarity. Baffled and unnerved by this inexplicable phenomenon, the narrator called out to Lita, whose wide eyes mirrored her own bewilderment. Together, they listened in disbelief as the cry intensified, growing more plaintive and desperate with each passing moment. But just as suddenly as it had begun, the cry morphed into something altogether more sinister, a chilling laughter that sent shivers down their spines. With trepidation gnawing at their hearts, they knew they had to investigate. Braving the storm, they emerged from the safety of their tent into the maelstrom outside, their senses heightened by fear and uncertainty. Each step towards the source of the sound felt like a journey into the unknown, their minds racing with 1,000 unanswered questions. As they ventured further into the darkness, the laughter seemed to draw closer, its malevolent tone echoing off the trees like a sinister chorus. With every passing moment, their apprehension grew, the oppressive weight of the storm pressing down upon them like a suffocating blanket. Yet despite their fear, they pressed on, driven by an insatiable curiosity to uncover the truth behind this inexplicable phenomenon. Little did they know that what awaited them in the heart of the storm would challenge everything they thought they knew about the world around them. As the eerie cacophony of unsettling sounds persisted, the atmosphere grew increasingly surreal. Amidst the howling wind and the pounding rain, there emerged the discordant melody of a tinkling bell, intermingled with the jarring buzz of a saw. It was as though the very fabric of reality was unraveling, and the boundaries between the tangible and the intangible were blurring. Through the veil of rain and darkness, the narrator and Lita beheld a chilling sight: indistinct shadows flitting among the trees, their forms resembling distorted, ghostly figures draped in tattered rags. Each shadow seemed to pulsate with an otherworldly energy, casting a pall of dread over the desolate landscape. With mounting fear clutching at their hearts, the narrator sought solace in prayer, her words a desperate plea for protection against the encroaching darkness. Miraculously, the shadows faltered, their movements becoming erratic and uncoordinated as if buffeted by an unseen force. As the first faint rays of dawn pierced the stormy sky, a palpable tension hung in the air. The shadows quivered and swayed, their insubstantial forms flickering like dying embers in the growing light. And then, with a final, ethereal wisp, they vanished into the ether, leaving behind only a lingering sense of unease and the faint echo of their haunting presence. In the wake of this inexplicable phenomenon, the narrator and Lita found themselves grappling with the unsettling realization that the boundaries between the known and the unknown were far more porous than they had ever imagined. And as they gazed out at the tranquil beauty of the dawn-lit forest, they knew that they had borne witness to something truly extraordinary, a glimpse into the mysterious depths of the human psyche and the unfathomable mysteries of the natural world. In the aftermath of the chilling encounter with the mysterious shadows, Lita's admission that she, too, had glimpsed the unearthly apparitions sent a shiver down the narrator's spine. Despite seeking refuge within the confines of their tent, the tendrils of fear had managed to seep into Lita's consciousness, haunting her even in the perceived safety of their shelter. Together, they grappled with the unsettling truth that their shared experience transcended the realm of rational explanation, plunging them into the depths of existential uncertainty. As they huddled together in the wake of their ordeal, the narrator's trembling limbs betrayed the magnitude of her shock. With leaden footsteps, she made her way to a weather-beaten stump nestled beside the tent, a solitary sanctuary amidst the encroaching darkness. Each step felt like an eternity, as if the very ground beneath her feet had become an unfathomable abyss, threatening to swallow her whole. Seated upon the rough-hewn surface of the stump, the narrator's thoughts whirled with a tumult of emotions: fear, disbelief, and an unshakable sense of awe at the incomprehensible forces that lurked within the depths of the forest. Her breath came in ragged gasps, each exhalation a testament to the fragility of her mortal existence in the face of the unknown. In the quiet stillness of the night, the forest seemed to hold its breath, as if awaiting the next manifestation of the unseen forces that lurked within its shadowy recesses. And as the stars glimmered faintly overhead, casting their ethereal light upon the scene, the narrator and Lita found themselves united in their shared vulnerability, a silent testament to the resilience of the human spirit in the face of unfathomable darkness. Upon the return of the men to the camp, the women wasted no time in recounting the harrowing events that had unfolded in their absence. As they relayed their tale, a palpable sense of unease settled over the group, casting a shadow of doubt upon the tranquility of their wilderness sanctuary. Initially, the leader of the expedition greeted their account with skepticism, dismissing their claims as the product of fear-induced hallucinations. His rational mind recoiled at the notion of unseen entities lurking within the forest, preferring instead to attribute their experiences to the tricks of the imagination. However, amidst the chorus of doubt, one voice rang out in staunch support of the women's testimony: the local huntsman among their ranks. Drawing upon his intimate knowledge of the surrounding wilderness, he lent credence to their account, affirming his belief in the existence of forces beyond the realm of human understanding. With unwavering conviction, he attested to the credibility of their encounter, citing his own encounters with the enigmatic inhabitants of the forest. To him, the women's testimonies were not merely the ramblings of frightened minds, but a sobering reminder of the ancient mysteries that lay concealed within the depths of the taiga. As the campfire crackled and cast flickering shadows upon the faces of the assembled group, the weight of their collective apprehension hung heavy in the air. For in that moment, beneath the veil of darkness that shrouded the forest, the boundaries between reality and myth blurred, leaving them to ponder the unsettling truth that lurked beyond the edge of comprehension. Amidst the backdrop of mystical occurrences that seemed to haunt their wilderness encampment, one of the laborers came forward with a tale steeped in local folklore and eerie marshland known for its sinister reputation. Despite its outward appearance as an innocuous meadow dotted with placid lakes, this bog was said to be cursed, its murky depths concealing secrets best left undisturbed. He recounted stories passed down through generations, tales of travelers who had ventured too close, only to vanish without a trace, swallowed whole by the malevolent forces that lurked within. It was a place where the boundaries between the mortal realm and the supernatural blurred, where the whispering winds carried the echoes of restless spirits and the very earth seemed to pulse with an otherworldly energy. Faced with the unsettling prospect of remaining within the reach of such malevolent forces, the decision was made to relocate the camp to higher ground, far from the sinister marshlands that had cast a shadow over their previous site. Under the guidance of the seasoned laborer, they sought out a new location along the winding course of the stream, where the waters ran clear and the air was devoid of the ominous whispers that had plagued their nights. With the move complete, a sense of relief washed over the group, accompanied by a newfound sense of security in their surroundings. No longer did they find themselves at the mercy of unseen forces, their sanctuary now firmly rooted in the tranquil embrace of the untamed wilderness. Yet, despite their newfound solace, the memory of the haunted marshland lingered like a ghostly specter in the recesses of their minds, a reminder of the mysteries that lay hidden within the heart of the taiga. In the annals of the Siberian wilderness, amidst the vast expanse of the taiga, there exists a tale shrouded in mystery, a tale that speaks of an encounter with a spectral visitor from the depths of the forest. It was the year 1996, and a group of lumberjacks had set up camp in a remote hunting lodge, their axes ringing out in harmony with the ancient rhythms of the woodland. As night descended like a velvet cloak upon the landscape, casting shadows long and deep, an unexpected visitor emerged from the enigmatic embrace of the forest, a solitary figure, bent with age and cloaked in the secrets of centuries past. His arrival was as sudden as it was inexplicable, for none among the lumberjacks recognized the weathered visage of the stranger who stood before them. With a voice as ancient as the whispering winds that stirred the boughs above, the old man spoke of a time long forgotten, weaving tales of bygone eras when the land was young and teeming with life. He regaled his captivated audience with stories of woodland spirits and fairy folk, of hidden treasures buried beneath the roots of ancient trees, and of the ebb and flow of life and death that defined the rhythm of the forest. Despite the unease that lingered like a shadow in the flickering firelight, the lumberjacks welcomed the stranger into their midst, offering him warmth and hospitality for the night. Yet, as dawn broke upon the horizon, casting its golden rays across the verdant tapestry of the taiga, the old man had vanished without a trace, leaving behind naught but the lingering echo of his enigmatic presence. It was then that the owner of the hunting lodge stepped forward, his weathered face etched with lines of wisdom and sorrow. He spoke of legends whispered among the trees, of a spectral figure known as the forest's old man said to have roamed the wilderness for centuries untold. According to local lore, this ethereal wanderer had lured countless souls into the heart of the forest, where they would either vanish without a trace or return, their minds haunted by visions of realms beyond the mortal realm. With a somber warning, the owner urged caution, for the forest's old man was a harbinger of darkness, a trickster whose true intentions lay shrouded in the mists of time. And so, as the lumberjacks resumed their labor beneath the canopy of ancient trees, they carried with them the weight of this cautionary tale, mindful of the unseen forces that lurked within the depths of the taiga. In the heart of the Siberian wilderness, nestled amidst the towering pines and moss-draped bogs, there exists a place shrouded in ominous legend, a place where the very air seems to hum with an otherworldly energy. This place is none other than the infamous marshlands, where the murky waters hold secrets as ancient as time itself. Local inhabitants, wise in the ways of the land, speak in hushed tones of the spectral figure known only as the Old Man of the Marshes. Unlike the villagers who dwell in the nearby hamlets and settlements, this enigmatic figure has never been known to walk among them, his presence confined to the mist-shrouded depths of the bog. The marshlands themselves are steeped in a dark reputation, their treacherous waters swallowing unwary travelers whole and leaving naught but whispers of their fate behind. Tales of lost souls and spectral apparitions abound, woven into the fabric of local folklore as cautionary reminders of the dangers that lie hidden beneath the murky surface. One lumberjack, his voice hushed with reverence and fear, recounted a brush with the unknown that had left him trembling in the shadow of the bog. He spoke of a time when he had planned to venture into the marshes in search of game, only to be overcome with a sense of foreboding so palpable that he could scarcely bring himself to take a single step forward. It was the memory of the old man, with his haunting gaze and ageless wisdom, that stayed his hand and turned him back from the brink of the unknown. For generations, the marshlands have held sway over the hearts and minds of those who dwell within their reach, casting a pall of unease over the surrounding landscape. And though the Old Man of the Marshes may be but a figure of myth and legend, his presence lingers like a ghostly specter in the collective consciousness of those who dare to tread upon the marsh's haunted shores. In the vast expanse of Siberia, where the winds whisper secrets among the towering pines and the earth holds memories of ages long past, tales of mystery and the inexplicable abound. Among the workers who toil in the remote wilderness, these stories are passed down like cherished heirlooms, each one adding another layer of intrigue to the region's rich tapestry of folklore. One such tale comes from a man named Valera, a grizzled veteran of the wilderness who inherited a legacy of mystery from his own ancestors. It is said that his great-grandfather, an intrepid hunter in the wilds of the Kemerovo region, once embarked on a fateful hunting expedition in the tumultuous 1930s. Accompanied by two fellow woodsmen and his trusty hunting dog, the intrepid hunter ventured deep into the heart of the forest in search of game. The air was thick with the scent of pine and the promise of adventure, but little did they know that fate had other plans in store. As they trudged through the undergrowth, the forest seemed to close in around them, its ancient boughs whispering secrets that only the trees themselves could decipher. Yet, despite the eerie atmosphere, the hunters pressed on, their resolve unshaken by the encroaching darkness. But then, in a moment that would haunt them for years to come, one of their party vanished without a trace. One moment he was there, walking beside them with the easy gait of a seasoned woodsman, and the next he was gone, swallowed up by the silent embrace of the forest. Frantic with fear and disbelief, the remaining hunters scoured the wilderness in search of their lost comrade, calling out his name into the oppressive silence that surrounded them. But their efforts were in vain, for he had vanished without a trace, leaving behind only questions and the lingering chill of uncertainty. To this day, the fate of the missing woodsman remains a mystery, his disappearance a grim reminder of the dangers that lurk within the shadowed depths of the Siberian wilderness. And though time may have dulled the edges of the tale, its echoes linger on, a testament to the enduring power of the unknown in the hearts and minds of those who dare to venture into the untamed wilds. In the rugged terrain of Siberia's wilderness, where each step is a dance with danger and every sound could spell either salvation or peril, the line between bravery and trepidation blurs like the mist among the trees. It was in this unforgiving landscape that the tale of Valera's great-grandfather unfolded, a narrative woven with threads of mystery and the unyielding bond between man and beast. As they ventured deeper into the heart of the forest, the hunters' keen senses were attuned to every rustle of the underbrush and every shift in the wind. Yet, amidst the cacophony of nature's symphony, there came a moment of sudden silence, a silence so profound that it sent shivers down their spines and set the hairs on the back of their necks alight with apprehension. It was then that one of their party, a stalwart companion whose presence had been a constant throughout their journey, vanished into the wilderness without a trace. In the face of this inexplicable disappearance, Valera's great-grandfather knew that action must be taken swiftly and decisively. But with his loyal hunting dog by his side, the intrepid woodsman set out in search of his missing comrade, each step a testament to his determination and resolve. Yet, as they delved deeper into the labyrinthine depths of the forest, the dog's behavior grew increasingly agitated, its senses attuned to a presence that eluded human perception. Beneath the canopy of ancient trees, where shadows danced like phantoms in the fading light, the hunter and his faithful companion pressed on, their hearts heavy with foreboding. And then, as if guided by some primal instinct, the dog began to bark furiously, its warning a harbinger of the dangers that lurked in the darkness. With a sense of unease gnawing at his soul, Valera's great-grandfather pressed onward, his senses heightened by the urgency of the moment. And then, just when all hope seemed lost, he stumbled upon a scene that would forever be etched into his memory: his missing comrade, crouched in the underbrush like a hunted animal, his eyes wide with fear and confusion. In that moment of reckoning, the hunter realized that the true danger lay not in the beasts of the forest, but in the mysteries that lurked within the human heart. And as he led his trembling companion back to the safety of their camp, he knew that the bonds forged in the crucible of adversity were stronger than any force the wilderness could muster. In the depths of the Siberian wilderness, where the ancient trees loom like silent sentinels and the air is heavy with the weight of untold secrets, Valera's great-grandfather embarked on a hunting expedition that would forever alter the course of his life. Accompanied by two companions, they ventured into the heart of the forest, their senses keen and their spirits high with the promise of the hunt. But as they delved deeper into the labyrinthine depths of the woodland, a sense of unease settled over them like a shroud, casting a pall of foreboding over their journey. It was then, in the midst of this palpable tension, that one of their party disappeared without a trace, swallowed up by the unforgiving embrace of the forest. As the hours stretched into an eternity and the shadows deepened around them, Valera's great-grandfather felt a creeping sense of unease take hold of him, a gnawing fear that clawed at the edges of his consciousness. And then, like a sudden chill wind cutting through the stillness of the night, he felt a strange numbness wash over him, a paralysis that rooted him to the spot and rendered him helpless in the face of an unseen threat. It was as if some malevolent force had cast its shadow over him, draining him of his strength and leaving him vulnerable to the dangers that lurked in the darkness. In the silence that followed, he heard the unmistakable sound of footsteps echoing through the forest, accompanied by the heavy, labored breathing of some unseen presence. And then, as if drawn by some unseen force, he turned his gaze towards the sound, only to be met with a sight that would haunt him for the rest of his days. There, looming in the darkness like a specter from the depths of the forest, stood a creature unlike any he had ever seen before. Its form was shrouded in shadow, its eyes gleaming with an otherworldly light as it regarded him with a gaze that sent shivers down his spine. In that moment of terror and disbelief, Valera's great-grandfather felt a surge of primal instinct course through him, a desperate urge to flee from the unknown horror that lurked in the depths of the forest. And yet, even as he turned to run, he knew that the creature would pursue him relentlessly, its hunger for blood and destruction driving it ever onwards. As he fled through the tangled undergrowth, his heart pounding in his chest and his breath coming in ragged gasps, he knew that he would never forget the terror of that fateful encounter, nor the terrible fate that had befallen his companions at the hands of the unknown entity that prowled the dark heart of the Siberian wilderness. After regaining his mobility, Valera's great-grandfather returned to the village, his mind haunted by the memory of that fateful encounter in the heart of the forest. Gathering a band of armed men and accompanied by their faithful hunting dogs, they retraced their steps back to the scene of the inexplicable disappearance. Yet, despite their best efforts and the keen noses of their canine companions, they found no trace of their missing comrade, no sign of the strange creature that had stalked them through the darkness of the Siberian wilderness. It was as if the forest itself had swallowed him whole, leaving behind only the lingering echoes of a mystery that defied explanation. For Valera's great-grandfather, the failed search served only to deepen the sense of despair and helplessness that had taken root within him. Consumed by guilt and remorse over his inability to protect his friend, he retreated into a world of solitude and self-imposed exile, shunning the company of others and drowning his sorrows in the bitter embrace of alcohol. And as the days turned into weeks and the weeks into months, he found himself plagued by a series of mysterious ailments and unexplained illnesses, his once robust health crumbling beneath the weight of his grief and guilt. No longer able to face the wilderness that had claimed so much from him, he turned his back on the forest that had once been his home, seeking solace in the fleeting comforts of the world beyond. But try as he might to escape the memories that haunted him, they remained a constant presence in his life, a grim reminder of the horrors that lurked in the shadows of the Siberian wilderness. And though he would never know for certain what had become of his missing comrade or the strange creature that had stolen him away, he could never shake the feeling that some malevolent force still lurked in the depths of the forest, waiting patiently for its next victim to stray too close. In the vast and enigmatic expanse of the Chita region, nestled amidst the untamed wilderness of Siberia, an intriguing tale unfolds, a tale of mystery, intrigue, and the unsettling encounter that would forever alter the course of one soldier's life. It was the year 2012, and the author found himself serving in a specialized unit in the heart of the Chita Oblast. Stationed at a remote supply base, their primary mission was to fulfill orders for ammunition and armaments, dispatching them to various military outposts scattered across the region. Yet, amidst the routine of their duties, an unexpected assignment would soon thrust them into the depths of the Chita forest, where secrets long dormant would awaken to greet them. One fateful day, the base received a substantial order for weaponry destined for a classified military installation hidden deep within the forest. Tasked with escorting the precious cargo along the winding railway tracks that cut through the heart of the wilderness, the author and his comrades set out on their journey, their senses attuned to the whispers of the forest that surrounded them. As they ventured deeper into the labyrinthine expanse of the Chita forest, a palpable sense of unease settled over the group, a feeling that lingered like a shroud in the cool Siberian air. The dense foliage seemed to close in around them, casting eerie shadows that danced in the flickering light of their torches, while the rustling of leaves and the mournful cry of distant wildlife echoed through the silent expanse. But it was not until they reached the heart of the forest, where the trees stood tall and imposing, their branches reaching towards the heavens like ancient sentinels guarding a long-forgotten secret, that the true nature of their mission would reveal itself. For as they unloaded the cargo from the train and began the arduous trek through the undergrowth, they became acutely aware that they were not alone in the depths of the Chita forest. Whispers of movement in the shadows, fleeting glimpses of elusive figures darting between the trees all served to heighten the sense of apprehension that hung heavy in the air. And as they pressed on, their footsteps echoing through the stillness of the forest, they could not shake the feeling that they were being watched, that unseen eyes followed their every move with a silent intensity that sent shivers down their spines. It was in this atmosphere of mounting tension and uncertainty that they encountered a creature unlike any they had ever seen, its form obscured by the swirling mists that enveloped the forest floor. With eyes wide and hearts pounding, they watched as it emerged from the shadows, a spectral presence that seemed to defy explanation. In that fleeting moment of contact, as their gazes met across the expanse of the forest, the soldier knew that he had glimpsed something beyond the realm of human understanding, something ancient and primal that stirred in the depths of the cheetah forest. And though they would eventually complete their mission and return to the safety of their base, the memory of that encounter would linger long after they had left the forest behind, a haunting reminder of the mysteries that lurk in the uncharted depths of the Siberian wilderness. Amidst the expanse of the Siberian wilderness, where the dense canopy of the forest stretches as far as the eye can see, a train grinds to a halt in the dead of night. The rhythmic chug of the locomotive falls silent, replaced by an eerie stillness that hangs heavy in the air, broken only by the rustle of leaves and the distant hoot of an owl. As the soldiers disembark from the train, their boots crunching softly on the forest floor, they find themselves enveloped in darkness. There are no welcoming parties awaiting their arrival, no lanterns casting their warm glow upon the scene, only the oppressive blackness of the night and the looming silhouettes of the trees. With a sense of apprehension, the groups of soldiers fan out from the train, their eyes scanning the surroundings for any sign of danger. They move cautiously, their senses on high alert, as they inspect the seals on the doors of the train cars, ensuring that the cargo remains secure. But despite their vigilance, there is an undeniable feeling of vulnerability that pervades the air, a sense of being at the mercy of the unforgiving wilderness that surrounds them. And as they stand amidst the towering trees, their breath forming ghostly clouds in the frigid night air, they can't help but wonder what other secrets lie hidden in the depths of the Siberian forest, waiting to be discovered in the darkness of the night. As the night draped its shroud over the forest, shrouding the world in an inky veil, an abrupt disturbance shattered the silence. From the far end of the convoy, where the third group rode, a piercing scream rent the air, followed swiftly by the crack of a gunshot. The soldiers of the second group, their hearts pounding with adrenaline, wasted no time in springing into action. Leaving behind a lone sentinel to guard the train car, they raced toward the source of the commotion, their boots pounding against the forest floor in a frantic rhythm. Each step seemed to echo louder than the last, the darkness closing in around them like a suffocating cloak. Branches clawed at their uniforms, and the underbrush snagged at their legs, but they pressed on, driven by a fierce determination to uncover the truth behind the chilling sound that had shattered the stillness of the night. As they drew closer to the scene, their senses heightened to a fever pitch. They could feel the tension crackling in the air like electricity. With weapons drawn and hearts racing, they braced themselves for whatever lay ahead, ready to confront whatever darkness lurked in the depths of the Siberian wilderness. As the senior lieutenant scanned the dense foliage, his gaze snagged on a peculiar figure lurking amidst the shadows of the forest. It appeared humanoid at first glance, but upon closer inspection, its form was shrouded in a thick mane of fur, obscuring its features from view. The soldiers, their nerves taut with anticipation, trained their flashlights on the creature, casting a stark beam of illumination into the darkness. At a distance of roughly 100 meters, the entity skulked behind the trunk of a towering tree, its movements deliberate and furtive. With each scrape of its claws against the bark, a shiver of unease rippled through the soldiers, their senses on high alert as they grappled with the enigma before them. Was it merely a trick of the shadows, a figment of their collective imagination, or something far more sinister lurking within the depths of the Siberian wilderness? As they watched, transfixed by the eerie spectacle unfolding before them, the creature seemed to sense their scrutiny, its gaze fixing upon them with an intensity that sent a chill racing down their spines. In that moment, they realized they were not alone in the darkness, and whatever lurked in the shadows was watching them with a hunger that defied comprehension. The soldiers and the officers stood transfixed, their senses straining against the oppressive silence of the forest as the mysterious creature continued its eerie presence. They could hear the unsettling scrape of its claws against the tree bark, a sound that seemed to reverberate through the stillness of the night like an ominous omen. In a desperate attempt to assert their dominance over the enigmatic being, One of the soldiers fired a warning shot into the air, the sharp report slicing through the night air like a knife. But the creature remained unmoved, its form shrouded in the cloak of darkness, a silent sentinel in the heart of the Siberian wilderness. Despite their efforts to intimidate it, the creature made no hostile movements towards the soldiers. Instead, it stood its ground, its gaze unwavering, as if daring them to challenge its dominion over the ancient forest. As reinforcements arrived, the soldiers watched in frustration as the creature melted back into the shadows, its presence fading like a specter into the night. Though they had glimpsed the unknown, its true nature remained a tantalizing mystery, leaving them to wonder what other secrets lay hidden within the depths of the Siberian wilderness. The local soldiers shared chilling accounts of encounters with similar entities within the forest, recounting eerie sightings that had become woven into the fabric of the region's folklore. According to their tales, these creatures were known to frequent the depths of the forest, lurking among the shadowed groves and ancient trees. Strangely, despite their fearsome appearance, the creatures seldom posed a direct threat to humans, especially when armed. Instead, they seemed to prefer to observe from the shadows, their presence often heralded by the unnerving silence that descended upon the forest like a shroud. However, their presence was not without consequence. Locals often stumbled upon the grisly remains of animals, particularly hares, their bodies torn asunder in a manner that hinted at the work of these mysterious beings. Such discoveries only added to the aura of fear and apprehension that surrounded the forest, fueling rumors and superstitions that had endured for generations. As the soldiers listened to these tales, they couldn't help but feel a chill creep down their spines, wondering what other secrets lay concealed within the dark heart of the Siberian wilderness. Despite the unnerving encounter with the mysterious creature, the soldiers pressed on with their task of loading and unloading the train cars. They proceeded cautiously, their senses heightened by the knowledge of the forest's enigmatic inhabitants lurking in the shadows. Each soldier remained vigilant, their weapons close at hand, ready to fend off any potential threat that might emerge from the depths of the woods. The eerie silence that hung over the forest seemed to amplify every sound, every rustle of leaves, every snap of a twig, keeping the soldiers on edge as they went about their duties. Despite the tension that permeated the air, the soldiers were determined to carry out their mission efficiently and effectively. They worked swiftly but methodically, their eyes darting to the dense undergrowth at the slightest hint of movement, their ears attuned to the faintest whisper of sound. Their efforts were bolstered by a sense of camaraderie and mutual trust, each soldier relying on their comrades to watch their backs as they navigated the treacherous terrain. Together, they formed a formidable unit, determined to complete their task and emerge unscathed from the depths of the mysterious forest. In his youth, the protagonist was captivated by the mysterious scars that adorned his friend's grandfather's hand. Eager for answers, he approached the elderly man, hoping to unravel the tale behind the disfigurement. With a solemn expression, the grandfather began recounting his encounter with the unknown. Lost in the depths of the forest, he stumbled upon a peculiar cabin, its time-worn exterior shrouded in an air of mystery. As he cautiously ventured inside, he was met by a young boy, his demeanor both welcoming and enigmatic. Inside the cabin, the tantalizing aroma of food greeted the weary traveler, tempting him with promises of nourishment. However, a nagging sense of unease gnawed at the edges of his consciousness, urging him to proceed with caution. Determined to quell his hunger pangs, the grandfather resolved to cleanse himself first, seeking solace in the simple act of washing away the grime of the forest. Little did he know that this seemingly innocuous decision would set into motion a chain of events that would alter the course of his life forever. Lost in the labyrinthine depths of the forest, the grandfather stumbled upon a peculiar cabin, its weathered facade exuding an aura of mystique. Intrigued yet wary, he approached and timidly requested entry, his senses tingling with apprehension. Inside, he was met by a young boy whose countenance radiated an otherworldly charm. Offered sustenance by his enigmatic host, the grandfather's hunger momentarily eclipsed his caution, but a lingering sense of disquiet gnawed at his consciousness. Before indulging in the tempting repast, the grandfather resolved to cleanse himself of the grime accumulated during his journey. As he immersed his hands in the basin, his gaze fell upon his left hand, marred by an indelible stain that defied his efforts to cleanse it. A sense of foreboding gripped him as he uttered a fervent prayer, invoking divine protection. In an instant, the illusion shattered like fragile glass, leaving him standing amidst the ruins of the cabin, a rusted knife in place of the pristine towel he had expected. It dawned on him then that he had been ensnared by a malevolent force, ensnared in a web of deceit spun by dark and unseen hands. Realization dawned upon the grandfather as he beheld the ghastly wound on his hand, a grim testament to the sinister forces that had ensnared him within their clutches. With every pulse of pain, he understood the gravity of his plight, but determination burned bright within him. Summoning every ounce of resilience, he navigated the treacherous labyrinth of the forest, each step a testament to his unwavering resolve. When at last he stumbled upon a familiar path, relief flooded his senses, driving him forward with renewed vigor. Through sheer perseverance, he emerged from the depths of the woods, his journey fraught with peril, yet tempered by a steely resolve to survive. Guided by the flickering light of hope, he traversed the final stretch, reaching the welcoming embrace of the village. There, amidst the warmth of community and the solace of compassionate souls, he found respite from the ordeal that had threatened to consume him whole. Tender hands tended to his injuries, offering succor in his darkest hour. The tale of his harrowing ordeal served as a stark reminder of the dangers that lurked beyond the safety of the village walls, a cautionary fable passed down through generations. It underscored the importance of faith and vigilance, warning against the perils of straying from the path of righteousness. And so, with newfound humility and a profound sense of gratitude, the grandfather emerged from the crucible of adversity, his spirit tempered by the flames of adversity, yet unbroken in its resilience. Gathered with the local constable, the man and his wife, Vera, recounted their unsettling encounter deep within the forest's embrace. As they spoke, a palpable unease hung heavy in the air, each word laden with the weight of their shared apprehension. Vera's voice trembled as she recounted the chilling details of her chance encounter with the enigmatic stranger. She described how, amidst the dappled shadows of the woodland grove, she had stumbled upon the solitary figure of an elderly man, his features obscured by the veil of time. With a voice like an echo from ages past, the old man had offered her guidance to a bountiful patch of mushrooms, his words laced with an otherworldly wisdom. Yet, as swiftly as he had appeared, he vanished into the ether, leaving naught but an eerie sense of disquiet in his wake. For Vera, the encounter had been more than just a fleeting moment of strangeness. It had become a harbinger of impending doom, casting a long shadow over her peace of mind. In the days that followed, her health began to falter, her once vibrant spirit dimmed by the specter of the unknown. As she spoke, the gravity of her words hung heavy in the air, a silent testament to the profound impact of her encounter. And as the tale unfolded, it became clear that their idyllic forest had become a realm of uncertainty, where the line between reality and the inexplicable blurred with disquieting ease. As the weight of her encounter with the mysterious old man settled upon her, Vera's unease deepened, her nerves fraying like the threads of a worn tapestry. The specter of his sudden disappearance haunted her every waking moment, a silent reminder of the fragility of her peace of mind. As the hours passed, Vera's condition worsened, her pulse racing like a wild stallion, her breaths coming in shallow gasps as panic tightened its grip around her chest. Sensing the gravity of the situation, her husband wasted no time, dialing the emergency services in a frantic bid for help. When the paramedics arrived, their swift intervention proved to be a lifeline in Vera's darkest hour. With practiced hands and calm reassurances, they tended to her with the utmost care, their diligence a beacon of hope amidst the encroaching darkness. Their diagnosis was swift and decisive hypertensive crisis coupled with severe nervous exhaustion, the telltale signs of a spirit stretched to its breaking point. But despite their urging, Vera remained steadfast in her resolve, adamantly refusing to be whisked away to the sterile confines of a hospital ward. Instead, she found solace in the humble abode of the local constable, where the gentle flicker of lamplight and the warmth of a familiar presence offered a semblance of sanctuary in her time of need. And there, in the comforting embrace of her husband's arms, she began her journey towards healing, her spirit buoyed by the unwavering support of those who loved her most. As Vera's condition gradually stabilized, she found solace in sharing her cherished pastime with her husband, a shared love for mushroom picking that had always been a source of joy and tranquility for them both. But as she delved deeper into her tale, her words took on an air of solemnity, each syllable tinged with the weight of an unsettling encounter. In the heart of the forest, amidst a sea of verdant foliage, Vera's path intersected with that of a mysterious figure cloaked in a shroud of shadows, a man in a hooded cloak whose presence seemed to materialize out of thin air. His demeanor was enigmatic, his voice a mere whisper in the wind as he directed her towards a bountiful patch of mushrooms hidden amidst the undergrowth. But as swiftly as he had appeared, the enigmatic stranger vanished into the ether, leaving behind nothing but an empty clearing and a lingering sense of disquiet. For Vera, the encounter was a jarring reminder of the unseen forces that lurked within the depths of the forest, their intentions as inscrutable as the shifting shadows that danced upon the forest floor. Haunted by the memory of the spectral figure and the inexplicable emptiness that had followed in his wake, Vera couldn't shake the feeling that she had stumbled upon something beyond the realm of the ordinary, a glimpse into a world where reality and illusion intertwined, blurring the lines between the tangible and the ethereal. And as she recounted her tale to her husband, the weight of her words hung heavy in the air, a silent testament to the mysteries that lay hidden within the depths of the forest. As Vera followed the mysterious stranger's guidance through the forest, her senses were assailed by an array of sights, sounds, and smells that seemed to belong to another world. The air was thick with the earthy scent of damp foliage, mingling with the pungent aroma of decaying wood, a stark reminder of the cycle of life and death that governed the forest's lush domain. Undeterred by the unsettling atmosphere, Vera pressed on, her footsteps muffled by the thick carpet of fallen leaves that carpeted the forest floor. And then, as if by some stroke of serendipity, she stumbled upon a hidden trove of mushrooms nestled amidst the tangled undergrowth. Clusters of fungi sprouted like miniature umbrellas from the decaying bark of fallen trees, their vibrant hues standing out against the muted backdrop of the forest. Among them, she spotted the telltale caps of chanterelles, their golden-orange hues a beacon of culinary delight, alongside the delicate fronds of oyster mushrooms and the earthy richness of porcini. But it was the sight of the elusive opal-shaped caps of the prized porcini mushrooms, nestled beneath the shadowy canopy of a fallen tree, that truly captivated her. With nimble fingers, she plucked the precious fungi from their woody perch, marveling at their plumpness and aroma, a bounty that promised to elevate her culinary creations to new heights. Despite the lingering sense of unease that lingered in the air, Vera couldn't help but feel a surge of excitement at her discovery. For in the heart of the forest, amidst the whispering trees and dappled sunlight, she had unearthed a treasure trove of nature's bounty, a testament to the untold wonders that lay hidden within the depths of the wilderness. And as she gathered her harvest, she couldn't shake the feeling that her encounter with the mysterious stranger had been nothing short of providence, guiding her towards a feast fit for royalty in the most unexpected of places. As Vera's eyes scanned the forest floor for mushrooms, her senses suddenly recoiled at an unexpected sight: a dark form slumped against the gnarled trunk of a nearby tree. A rush of adrenaline surged through her veins as she approached cautiously, her heart hammering in her chest with a mixture of fear and curiosity. With trembling hands, she reached out to touch the motionless figure, recoiling at the cold, lifeless touch of flesh. It was a man, his features contorted in a grimace of pain, his eyes staring vacantly into the distance. The pungent odor that had assailed her senses now emanated from his still form, mingling with the earthy scent of the forest, a chilling reminder of the fragility of life amidst the untamed wilderness. Fear gripped Vera's heart as she stumbled backwards, her scream tearing through the tranquil silence of the forest. Her husband, alerted by her cries, rushed to her side, his eyes widening in horror at the sight before him. Together they approached the fallen man, their hearts heavy with dread and disbelief. Beside the motionless figure lay a wicker basket, its contents spilled haphazardly onto the forest floor, a bounty of mushrooms, their vibrant hues stark against the muted tones of the forest floor. It was a macabre juxtaposition of life and death, a grim reminder of the fleeting nature of existence amidst the beauty and brutality of the natural world. As Vera's husband knelt beside the fallen man, his fingers trembling as he reached out to close the lifeless eyes, A sense of unease settled over them like a shroud. For in that moment, amidst the quiet rustle of leaves and the distant call of a solitary bird, they were confronted with the harsh reality of mortality, a reminder that even in the heart of nature's embrace, death lurked just beyond the shadows, waiting to claim its next victim. As Vera and her husband hurried back to their vehicle, the weight of the grim discovery hung heavy upon them, casting a pall over the once serene forest landscape. With each hurried step, Vera's mind raced with a jumble of thoughts and emotions, her senses heightened by the chilling encounter with death. The distant hum of the forest seemed to grow louder, the rustle of leaves and the gentle whisper of the wind, now carrying an ominous undertone, a reminder of the fragility of life and the ever-present specter of mortality. As they reached their car, Vera's husband hastily scribbled a note, pinning it to a nearby bush as a marker for authorities to locate the scene of the grim discovery. A strange sense of foreboding settled over Vera, an unshakable feeling that the deceased man had orchestrated the sequence of events leading to his discovery. It was as though he had guided her to his final resting place, a silent plea for closure amidst the vast expanse of the forest. Silently, they climbed into their vehicle, the engine roaring to life as they sped towards the nearest settlement to report their unsettling find to the local authorities. With each passing mile, Vera couldn't shake the feeling of unease that lingered like a shadow, a haunting reminder of the mysteries that lurked within the depths of the forest and the secrets that lay buried beneath its ancient canopy. The investigation proceeded swiftly once Vera and her husband reached the nearest village and informed the local constable about their harrowing discovery. The constable, a grizzled man with a stern face softened only by the kindness in his eyes, listened intently as they recounted the events, his expression growing grimmer with each detail. Upon receiving the coordinates and description of the location, the constable mobilized a small team to retrieve the body. Meanwhile, Vera and her husband were asked to stay for further questioning. They were offered tea and a place to rest, but Vera's mind remained restless, replaying the eerie encounter over and over. Later that day, news arrived from the search team. The body had been successfully retrieved and brought back to the village. Identification was relatively straightforward. The deceased was a villager who had been reported missing 2 weeks prior. He was a diabetic, and the note with his address in his pocket confirmed his identity. The villagers had been worried, and his family devastated by his disappearance. As Vera learned of his identity, a wave of relief mixed with sorrow washed over her. She had been dreading the possibility of the unknown, fearing it might be someone even closer to her heart. Yet she couldn't escape the lingering question, why had she been the one to find him? Sitting by the fire in the constable's small office, she voiced her thoughts aloud to her husband. Why me? Why did I have to find him? It feels like he led me there for a reason. Her husband, trying to comfort her, replied, perhaps he did. Maybe, in his last moments, he wanted to ensure someone found him, someone who would care enough to bring help. And you did. The constable, overhearing their conversation, nodded thoughtfully. The forest holds many secrets, and sometimes it chooses to reveal them to those who are perceptive and compassionate. You may never know the full reason, but you gave his family closure, and that is no small thing. Vera found some solace in these words, yet the memory of the strange encounter would remain etched in her mind. As they left the village, heading back to their home, the sky began to clear, and the sun cast its warm glow over the treetops. The forest, with all its mysteries and whispers, seemed to acknowledge their passage, the shadows receding and the path ahead becoming clearer. In the days that followed, Vera resumed her routine, yet she couldn't help but feel a deeper connection to the forest. The experience had left her with a newfound respect for its ancient, enigmatic presence. She continued to ponder the events, not with fear, but with a sense of wonder at the unseen forces that had guided her on that fateful day. In the summer of 2016, the day was marked by the celebration of the Vladimir icon of the Mother of God. The air was filled with a sense of reverence and festivity as people gathered near the picturesque Svetloyer Lake. The clear waters of the lake mirrored the surrounding dense forest, creating a serene and almost mystical atmosphere. The author, a keen observer of nature, had ventured out to the lake to enjoy the tranquility and perhaps to find some inspiration. The festivities were vibrant, but he preferred the quieter corners of the forest where he could reflect and connect with the natural beauty around him. As the sun began to dip towards the horizon, casting long shadows through the trees, the author noticed something unusual. Between the dense trunks of the ancient trees, he spotted a figure that seemed out of place. It was tall and slender, almost human-like in its form, yet something about it was distinctly otherworldly. The figure appeared to be wearing a ghillie suit, blending seamlessly with the foliage. It stood perfectly still, almost as if it were a part of the forest itself. The author's heart raced as he squinted, trying to make out more details. The longer he stared, the more convinced he became that this was not a person playing dress-up or a hunter in camouflage. There was an aura of the uncanny about it, an ancient and primal energy that sent shivers down his spine. The figure's face was obscured, but the shape of its head and the way it held itself suggested something more than human. It was reminiscent of the Leshy, a mythical forest spirit from Slavic folklore known to be the guardian of the forest. The Leshy is often described as a shapeshifter, able to blend into the forest so completely that it becomes nearly invisible. Caught between awe and fear, the author stood frozen, not daring to move. The figure remained motionless, observing him with what felt like an intense, unseen gaze. He wondered if it was aware of his presence or if it even considered him a threat. Time seemed to stretch, each second feeling like an eternity. Suddenly, the sound of bells from the nearby church broke the silence, signaling the start of the evening service. The figure seemed to stir at the sound, turning its head slightly, as if acknowledging the call to prayer. Then, with a fluid, almost imperceptible motion, it melted back into the forest, disappearing among the trees. The author blinked, trying to process what he had just witnessed. He felt a mix of relief and disappointment as the figure vanished, leaving him alone once more in the growing twilight. Gathering his thoughts, he walked back towards the gathering by the lake, his mind buzzing with the encounter. Later that evening, he shared his experience with a few locals. Their reactions were a mix of skepticism and curiosity. Some dismissed it as a trick of the light or an overactive imagination, but a few nodded knowingly. They spoke in hushed tones about the old legends, agreeing that on days of religious significance, the veil between the worlds thins, and such encounters are not entirely unheard of. The author left Svetloyer Lake with more questions than answers, but also with a profound sense of connection to the ancient stories and the natural world. The encounter with the mysterious figure stayed with him, a reminder of the magic and mystery that still linger in the hidden corners of our world. On a warm summer evening in 2016, the author found himself walking along the winding road that led to the serene Svetloyer Lake. The day had been spent in quiet reflection by the water, soaking in the peaceful atmosphere of the celebration of the Vladimir icon of the Mother of God. As the sky turned a soft shade of twilight, he decided to head back to the village, savoring the calmness of the surrounding forest. The path was flanked by towering trees, their leaves rustling gently in the evening breeze. The only sounds were the distant calls of birds settling down for the night and the soft crunch of gravel under his feet. The author's thoughts wandered to the events of the day and the sense of tranquility that had enveloped him. As he rounded a bend in the road, he suddenly stopped in his tracks. Just ahead, standing motionless in the middle of the path, was a figure unlike any he had ever seen. Clad in a black hooded cloak, the figure exuded an air of ancient mystery. The hood was drawn up, casting a deep shadow over what should have been a face, but there was only an impenetrable darkness within. The author's heart pounded as he took in the sight. The figure's presence was unsettling, yet it did not seem threatening. It stood with an aura of self-assuredness, as if it owned the very ground on which it stood. The stillness of the figure contrasted sharply with the gentle movements of the forest around them, making it appear almost surreal. For a moment, the author considered turning back, but curiosity and a strange sense of calm urged him forward. He took a cautious step closer, trying to make out any features beneath the hood. The closer he got, the more he felt an overwhelming sense of the uncanny, as if the figure was both part of this world and something beyond it. The author recalled the tales he had heard as a child about the Leshy, the enigmatic forest spirit from Slavic folklore. The Leshy was said to be a guardian of the woods, capable of leading travelers astray or guiding them to safety depending on its mood. This figure fit the description perfectly, standing tall and mysterious, shrouded in black. Gathering his courage, the author spoke softly, almost in a whisper. "Who are you?" The figure remained silent, its presence a heavy, almost palpable force. The author felt a chill run down his spine, but also a strange sense of respect. This was no ordinary encounter, he was in the presence of something ancient and powerful. After what felt like an eternity, the figure finally moved. It raised one arm slowly, pointing a long, bony finger towards the lake. The gesture was deliberate, almost ceremonial. The author followed the direction of the pointing finger and saw the path ahead, illuminated by the last rays of the setting sun. When he turned back to the figure, it had vanished. There was no sign of movement, no rustling of leaves, just the empty road and the fading light. The author stood there for a moment, absorbing what had just happened. The encounter left him with a profound sense of awe and a lingering question about the true nature of the forest and its hidden inhabitants. With a newfound respect for the mysteries of the natural world, he continued on his way, the figure's silent guidance echoing in his mind. He reached the village as night fell, sharing his story with a few trusted friends. Their reactions were mixed, but the legend of the Leshy grew a little richer with his experience. The author never forgot that evening, and each visit to Svetloyer Lake thereafter was tinged with a sense of reverence for the unseen forces that dwelled within the ancient woods. The encounter with the hooded figure in the black cloak remained a reminder of the delicate balance between the known and the unknown, the seen and the unseen, in the world around us. As the author inched closer to the enigmatic figure on the road to Svetloyer Lake, a wave of intense, irrational fear washed over him. It was unlike any fear he had ever experienced, a primal dread that gripped him to the core. His heart raced, and his instincts screamed at him to run, yet a strange compulsion drew him forward, as if an invisible force was guiding his steps. With each step, the figure loomed larger, its presence more imposing. The hooded cloak, as black as the void, seemed to absorb the fading light around it. The author's mind raced with thoughts of ancient legends and ghost stories, but this encounter felt far more real and immediate. Suddenly, an overwhelming urge to strike the figure surged within him. His hand twitched, fingers curling into a fist, as if preparing to launch an attack. But just as quickly as the impulse came, a voice of reason intervened. What if this being truly was a Leshy, a guardian of the forest with powers beyond his understanding? The consequences of such an act could be catastrophic, not just for him but for anyone who might cross this path in the future. He stopped, standing still, his body tense with conflicting emotions. The fear was palpable, almost suffocating, yet his rational mind fought to regain control. He took a deep breath, trying to steady himself. In the heavy silence of the forest, he decided to try a different approach. Mustering all the courage he could, the author closed his eyes and reached out with his thoughts. "Please," he thought, directing his mental plea towards the figure. "I mean no harm. I'm just passing through. Please, don't harm me." He opened his eyes and waited. The figure remained motionless, its dark hood still concealing whatever lay within. For a few agonizing moments, nothing happened. Then, slowly, the sense of impending doom began to lift. The oppressive weight of fear eased, replaced by a cautious calm. The author felt a subtle shift in the atmosphere, as if his silent plea had been acknowledged. The figure's stance seemed less threatening, its presence less ominous. Though it didn't move or speak, he sensed a change, a truce of sorts. Taking this as a sign, the author took a tentative step backward, then another. He kept his eyes on the figure, not daring to turn his back until he was a safe distance away. Once he felt it was safe, he turned and walked briskly down the path, his heart still pounding but his mind clearer. The encounter left him shaken but profoundly relieved. He knew he had come perilously close to an encounter with something far beyond his understanding. As he reached the edge of the forest and the comforting sight of the village lights, he felt a mixture of gratitude and awe. That night, as he recounted the tale to his friends by the fire, he couldn't shake the feeling that he had narrowly escaped a great unknown. The encounter with the Leshy became a defining moment, a reminder of the thin veil between the natural world and the supernatural forces that occasionally touch our lives. He would forever remember that day as the one when he faced an ancient guardian of the forest and walked away with a story that would be told for generations. As the author continued down the forest path towards Svetloyer Lake, he wasn't alone. Walking a few steps behind him was a girl, equally drawn to the lake's mystical allure. Suddenly, she noticed the same strange figure standing in their path, a dark, hooded figure that exuded an air of ancient mystery and danger. At first, she thought it might be a trick of the light or her imagination playing tricks on her. But as she drew closer, it became painfully clear that this was no ordinary person. The figure stood utterly still, shrouded in a cloak as dark as midnight, its face hidden in impenetrable shadow. A chill ran down her spine, and an overwhelming sense of dread settled over her. The author, sensing her presence and the growing unease, turned to look at her. Their eyes met, and in that brief exchange, they shared an unspoken understanding this was something they both needed to avoid. Fear gripped them both, tightening its hold with every passing second. The girl could feel her heart pounding in her chest, echoing the rapid, anxious rhythm of the author's. Despite the fear, they knew they had to keep moving. They glanced back at the Leshy, ensuring it hadn't moved, then resumed their cautious journey towards the village. Every few steps, they couldn't help but look over their shoulders, half expecting the figure to be following them or vanishing into the woods. The silence of the forest was punctuated only by the sound of their footsteps and the occasional rustling of leaves. The oppressive darkness seemed to close in around them, amplifying their anxiety. The girl could feel the weight of the Leshy's gaze, even though it hadn't moved. It was as if the forest itself was watching, holding its breath as they passed through. Their progress was slow, each step heavy with trepidation. They tried to remain calm, but the fear was palpable, a living thing that seemed to cling to them. The path seemed to stretch on forever, the familiar landmarks of the village feeling like distant, unreachable promises. Finally, as they neared the edge of the forest, the comforting lights of the village came into view. They quickened their pace, driven by the desperate need to escape the Leshy's domain. Only when they were safely within the village did they allow themselves to breathe a sigh of relief. Later that evening, as they recounted their harrowing experience to the villagers, the fear still lingered in their voices. The girl described the figure in detail, her voice trembling as she spoke of its inhuman presence. The author added his own account, emphasizing the intense fear and the sense of being watched. The villagers listened with a mix of fascination and concern. They shared stories of other strange encounters in the forest, tales of ancient spirits and guardians who protected the natural world in ways beyond human understanding. The encounter with the Leshy became another chapter in the village's rich tapestry of folklore, a reminder of the mysterious forces that lurk just beyond the edge of the known world. From that day on, both the author and the girl carried the memory of their encounter with them. It was a powerful reminder of the thin veil between the ordinary and the extraordinary, a brush with the supernatural that left an indelible mark on their lives. Upon returning home, the author found himself still haunted by the encounter in the forest. The eerie image of the Leshy, cloaked in darkness, remained vivid in his mind. Seeking comfort, he recounted the story to his mother, expecting some rational explanation or reassurance. His mother listened intently, her face growing pale as he described the hooded figure and the overwhelming fear that had gripped him and the girl. When he finished, she sat in silence for a moment, then spoke in a tone filled with both concern and understanding. "Do you remember what night it was?" she asked. The author paused, confusion flickering across his face. It had been an ordinary summer evening, hadn't it? He shook his head slowly. His mother leaned forward, her eyes locking onto his. "It was the night of Ivan Kupala," she said softly. "On that night, all manner of spirits and supernatural beings come out into the world. It is a time when the veil between our world and the spirit world is at its thinnest." The realization hit the author like a bolt of lightning. Ivan Kupala night, how could he have forgotten? It was a night steeped in ancient traditions and folklore, a night when bonfires were lit, and people danced to ward off evil spirits. A night when the mystical and the mundane intertwined. Suddenly, the encounter made sense. The strange figure, the intense fear, the sense of something otherworldly, it all aligned with the tales of Ivan Kupala. He felt a chill run down his spine, not from fear, but from the recognition of the deep cultural roots that explained his experience. I had forgotten, he admitted, his voice tinged with awe. I hadn't thought about Ivan Kupala for years. His mother nodded. It's easy to forget such things in the hustle of everyday life, but these traditions hold a truth about the world that we often overlook. Reflecting on her words, the author realized how deeply he had been disconnected from these ancient customs. The encounter with the Leshy was not just a brush with the supernatural, it was a reminder of the rich cultural heritage that surrounded him. The stories, the myths, the traditions, they all served to bridge the gap between the known and the unknown, providing explanations and understanding where logic often failed. The author felt a newfound respect for the wisdom of his ancestors. The night of Ivan Kupala, a night of mystical significance, had drawn him into a world he had almost forgotten. He made a silent promise to himself to remember and honor these traditions, to keep alive the stories that connected him to the mysteries of the world. As he sat with his mother, discussing the legends and folklore associated with Ivan Kupala, he felt a sense of peace. The encounter with the Leshy, while terrifying, had also been a powerful reminder of the magic that still existed in the world. It was a call to remember, to believe, and to respect the unseen forces that shaped their lives. A year and a half had passed since the chilling encounter with the Leshy in the forest near Svetloyer Lake. Despite the passage of time, the memory remained vivid for the author. One day, he decided to reach out to the girl who had been with him that night, hoping to find some solace or clarification. They met at a quiet cafe, the atmosphere contrasting sharply with the tension of their previous experience. After some small talk, he broached the topic that had been weighing on his mind. "Do you remember that night near Svetloyer Lake?" he asked cautiously. She looked at him, her expression shifting from curiosity to a solemn acknowledgement. "How could I forget?" she replied. "I still think about it sometimes. That figure, it wasn't human." Relieved that she remembered, he felt a renewed sense of validation. They spent the next hour recounting their memories of that night in detail, each confirming the other's experience. The dark, hooded figure, the overwhelming fear, and the instinct to keep their distance, all these details matched perfectly. It was clear to both of them that what they had seen was no mere figment of their imaginations. Months later, the author found himself recounting this story to friends and family, eager to share the profound impact it had on him. He emphasized the eerie synchronization of their memories, the unlikelihood of two people experiencing the same hallucination or figment of the imagination in such vivid detail. "She remembered everything just as I did," he would say. "The hooded figure, the feeling of being watched, the irrational fear, it was all the same. There's no way it was just in our heads." He described how they had both felt an instinctive dread, yet a strange compulsion to look back and ensure they were not being followed. The Leshy, as they had come to call it, seemed almost a sentinel of the forest, watching but not attacking, as if asserting its dominance over the realm. Their shared experience served as a compelling testament to the reality of what they had encountered. It wasn't just a story, it was a reminder of the mysteries that lurked beyond the edges of understanding, especially on a night as significant as Ivan Kupala. This encounter, and the subsequent confirmation of memories, strengthened the author's belief in the unseen forces that intertwine with the natural world. It was a humbling reminder of the ancient lore and traditions that spoke of such beings, and an affirmation that sometimes those stories hold more truth than one might think. As he told the tale, the author often reflected on how this experience had deepened his appreciation for the cultural and mystical heritage of his homeland. The shared memory with the girl was more than just a frightening event, it was a bridge to a deeper understanding of the world and a reminder to respect the old legends that continue to shape the human experience. As the seasons changed and the responsibilities at home grew, the narrator found himself taking on various odd jobs in the village to support his family financially. His parents, particularly his father, appreciated his efforts but couldn't shake the concern for his safety. The dense forests surrounding the village held many secrets and dangers, and recent events had only heightened their worries. One crisp autumn morning, an opportunity arose that promised substantial pay but came with significant risk. A local lumber company needed someone to scout new logging areas deeper within the forest. a task that had deterred many due to recent unexplained occurrences and the inherent dangers of the dense woodland. "I'll do it," the narrator volunteered, his voice steady and determined. His father's eyes widened with worry. "Are you sure, son? It's not just the wild animals are getting lost. People have been seeing things in those woods, strange things." "I know," Daddy replied, trying to sound more confident than he felt. "But we need the money. I'll be careful, I promise." The weight of the decision hung heavy in the air. His mother busied herself with chores, clearly anxious but silent. His father sighed deeply, rubbing his temples before finally nodding. "All right, but you take every precaution, and if anything feels off, you come back." "Understood." With a nod, the narrator prepared for the journey, packing essentials and ensuring his equipment was in good condition. A compass, a map, and a sturdy walking stick joined the more practical items like food and water in his backpack. He also tucked a small, worn cross into his pocket, a token of his mother's faith and a silent comfort against the unknown. Setting out at dawn the next day, he felt the crisp air invigorate him, but the shadows of the forest loomed ahead. As he ventured deeper, the familiar sounds of the village faded, replaced by the symphony of the wild. Birds called to each other, leaves rustled in the breeze, and twigs snapped underfoot. Hours passed as he made his way through the thick underbrush, marking potential logging sites and noting any hazards. The deeper he went, the more he sensed the forest's ancient presence. The trees seemed to close in, their branches forming a cathedral of nature that was both awe-inspiring and intimidating. As the light began to fade, he set up a small camp, preparing for the night. He built a fire, its warmth a welcome comfort against the encroaching chill. Sitting by the flickering flames, he couldn't help but think of the stories his father had told him, tales of strange sightings and eerie encounters. His thoughts were interrupted by a sudden, sharp crack from the darkness beyond the firelight. He stood up, every muscle tensed, listening intently. The forest had gone unnaturally silent. No rustling leaves, no nocturnal creatures stirring. Just an oppressive, expectant stillness. "Who's there?" he called out, trying to keep his voice steady. No response. Just the heavy silence pressing in on him. He tightened his grip on his walking stick, feeling the smooth wood reassuring in his hand. Taking a deep breath, he edged closer to the fire, trying to peer into the shadows. And then he saw it. Just beyond the reach of the firelight, a figure stood motionless among the trees. Tall, cloaked in darkness, its eyes glinted like twin stars. The narrator's heart pounded in his chest, but he held his ground, refusing to show fear. "What do you want?" he demanded, his voice echoing unnaturally in the stillness. The figure remained silent, its gaze unblinking. Moments stretched into an eternity before it finally turned and melted into the darkness, leaving the narrator alone with his racing thoughts. He barely slept that night, the encounter replaying in his mind. At dawn, he quickly packed up and began his journey back to the village, his mission only half completed. The forest seemed less inviting now, each shadow a potential threat. Upon his return, his parents were relieved to see him, their worried expressions softening only slightly when he recounted his experience. His father listened intently, nodding gravely. "It seems the forest has its own guardians," he said quietly. "Next time, we will find a safer way." The narrator nodded, grateful for the concern and the lesson learned. The forest held many secrets, and not all of them were meant to be uncovered by human curiosity. As the sun climbed higher in the sky, casting dappled light through the dense canopy, the narrator continued his reconnaissance deep into the forest. He moved with a sense of purpose, carefully marking potential logging sites and noting any hazards along the way. The initial confidence he felt began to wane as the forest grew thicker and more labyrinthine. Hours slipped by, and the forest seemed to close in around him. Every tree started to look the same, every path indistinguishable from the last. A creeping sense of unease settled in his chest. Despite his best efforts to stay oriented, he realized with growing alarm that he was seeing familiar landmarks again and again. A fallen log, a distinctively twisted tree, a cluster of mushrooms growing on a stump each came into view repeatedly. as if mocking his attempts to navigate. The forest was playing tricks on him, or so it seemed. His compass needle wavered uncertainly, as if caught in a magnetic anomaly. He tried to retrace his steps, but no matter which direction he chose, he ended up back at the same spots. It was as though an invisible hand had placed him in a looping maze, and every turn he took only brought him back to where he started. Fear began to gnaw at his resolve. The light filtering through the trees started to dim as the day waned, casting long, eerie shadows that danced and shifted with the breeze. The familiar sounds of the forest became unnervingly quiet, amplifying his sense of isolation. His breath came in shallow gasps and his pulse quickened. The realization that he was lost, truly lost, settled in his mind like a lead weight. He paused to collect himself, taking deep breaths to stave off the rising panic. He knew he had to keep moving, but every step felt heavier, every direction a potential dead end. The feeling of being trapped in an endless loop sapped his energy and morale. Think, he muttered to himself, scanning the forest for any clue that might break the cycle. He climbed a small rise, hoping to get a better view, but the sea of trees stretched unbroken in every direction. Desperation clawed at him as he descended, his steps less certain, his mind racing through scenarios of endless wandering. As night began to fall, the forest took on an even more sinister aspect. The temperature dropped, and the once comforting sounds of nocturnal creatures became ominous and threatening. He built a small fire, its flickering light providing little solace against the encroaching darkness. The fire's warmth was a thin barrier against the chill that seeped into his bones and the fear that gnawed at his mind. Sitting by the fire, he tried to make sense of his predicament. How had he become so disoriented? Why couldn't he break free from this confounding loop? He thought of the stories his father had told him, tales of mischievous spirits and enchanted forests that led travelers astray. He had dismissed them as folklore, but now, alone and lost, he couldn't help but wonder if there was some truth to them. The night dragged on, each minute stretching into an eternity. His fire flickered and hissed, casting long shadows that danced menacingly around him. He couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, the sense that unseen eyes were following his every move. He tried to stay alert, but exhaustion finally overtook him, and he drifted into a restless sleep. When dawn broke, he awoke with a renewed sense of determination. He couldn't afford to give in to despair. He packed up his gear, extinguished the remnants of his fire, and set off once more. He moved slowly, carefully marking his path, hoping to break free from the forest's grip. The cycle continued, each familiar landmark sending jolts of fear through him, but he refused to give up. His persistence paid off when he finally stumbled upon a narrow path he hadn't seen before, hidden beneath thick underbrush. With a mixture of hope and trepidation, he followed it, praying it would lead him out of the forest's sinister embrace. Hours later, he emerged into a clearing, the sight of open sky and the distant outline of the village filling him with overwhelming relief. He had escaped the forest's clutches, but the experience had left its mark. He knew he would never forget the feeling of being trapped, the sense of unseen forces at play, and the chilling realization that some stories held more truth than he had ever imagined. As the narrator stumbled out of the dense forest into the clearing, his eyes adjusted to the bright daylight. Relief washed over him, but it was tinged with exhaustion and lingering fear. He paused to catch his breath, taking in the open sky and the distant outline of the village. Just as he was about to continue, a movement caught his eye. Emerging from the shadows of the trees was an elderly man, his long, silver beard flowing in the breeze. He wore a sturdy black and green outfit, blending seamlessly with the forest around him. His eyes, sharp and clear, locked onto the narrator with a look of both curiosity and concern. "Hello there," the old man called out, his voice carrying a tone of authority softened by age. "You look like you've had quite an adventure." The narrator, still shaken from his ordeal, nodded weakly. I got lost. Couldn't find my way out of the forest. It felt like I was going in circles." The old man stepped closer, his movements deliberate and confident. "I see. It's easy to get turned around in these parts. You're lucky I found you," he extended a hand. "Name's Ivan. I'm the forest ranger here. Let me help you get back to safety." Grateful and relieved, the narrator shook Ivan's hand. "Thank you. I'm really glad to see you." With a reassuring nod, Ivan began to lead the way, guiding the narrator through a less intimidating part of the forest. As they walked, Ivan asked gentle but probing questions. "So, what brought you out here into the deep woods? You don't seem like a usual visitor." The narrator explained his situation, how he had taken on various jobs in the village to support his family, and how this particular task involved scouting potential logging sites. Ivan listened intently, occasionally nodding or making a thoughtful sound. "Forest work is tough," Ivan remarked after a while, "especially for someone your age. It's admirable you're helping out your family." The path they followed seemed to wind with purpose, every step taking them closer to the edge of the forest. The oppressive atmosphere that had clung to the narrator during his ordeal seemed to lift with every word exchanged between them. Ivan's presence was comforting, a steadying force in the wake of the unsettling experience. "Have you been a ranger here long?" the narrator asked, curiosity piqued by the old man's knowledgeable demeanor and the ease with which he navigated the forest. "Longer than I care to remember," Ivan chuckled. "This forest has been my home for decades. I've seen many things, some of them quite strange, but it always has a way of guiding those who respect it." They continued in companionable silence for a bit, the sounds of the forest less intimidating and more harmonious now. Ivan's experience and wisdom seemed to flow around them, creating an invisible barrier against the fear that had once gripped the narrator. Eventually, the trees began to thin, and the familiar sights of the village came into view. The narrator felt a wave of relief wash over him, stronger this time, knowing he was truly safe. "Here we are," Ivan said, stopping at the edge of the forest. "Just follow the path, and you'll be home in no time." The narrator turned to Ivan, gratitude shining in his eyes. "I can't thank you enough for your help. I don't know what I would have done without you." Ivan smiled kindly. "Just remember to respect the forest and its secrets. It's always watching, always listening." With a final nod, he turned and disappeared back into the trees, as if he were a part of the forest itself. The narrator watched until Ivan was out of sight, then turned to make his way back to his village. The encounter with the forest ranger stayed with him, a reminder of the strange and powerful forces that lay hidden within the woods. He knew he would never forget the lessons learned and the mysterious old man who had guided him back to safety. As the narrator returned home and shared the details of his encounter with the mysterious forest ranger, he was met with shocked expressions and murmurs of disbelief. It wasn't long before someone spoke up, their voice hushed with awe and reverence. "That can't be possible," one villager exclaimed. "Nikita Stepanovich, the forest ranger, was killed by poachers 2 years ago." The revelation sent a shiver down the narrator's spine. Could it be that the man who had guided him through the forest was none other than the deceased ranger? It seemed unfathomable, yet the details of their encounter matched perfectly with the descriptions of Nikita Stepanovich. As the news spread through the village, whispers of disbelief mingled with tales of the supernatural. Some believed that Nikita's appearance in the forest was nothing short of a miracle, a sign that he continued to watch over the woods even in death. Others whispered of ghostly apparitions and restless spirits, weaving tales of a spectral guardian haunting the very trees he once protected in life. The narrator couldn't shake the feeling of awe and unease that lingered in the air. The encounter with the forest ranger, whether a living man or a benevolent spirit, had left an indelible mark on him. It was a reminder of the mysteries that lurked within the depths of the forest and the enduring legacy of those who dedicated their lives to its protection. As he reflected on the strange events of that day, the narrator couldn't help but feel a sense of gratitude towards the enigmatic figure who had guided him to safety. Whether Nikita Stepanovich was a flesh and blood ranger or a spectral guardian, his presence had provided comfort and guidance in a moment of dire need. And though his fate remained shrouded in mystery, his legacy lived on in the hearts and minds of those who wandered the forest paths he once called home. With a final, lingering gaze into the camera, the storyteller concludes his tale, his voice tinged with a mix of wonder and gratitude. "And so ends the tale of my encounter with the mysterious forest ranger," he says, his words carrying the weight of the unspoken mysteries that still linger in the air. "But the forest holds many secrets. Dear viewers," he continues, his tone earnest and impassioned. And it is through stories like these that we catch glimpses of the hidden wonders that lie just beyond our reach. As he speaks, the storyteller's eyes seem to sparkle with a newfound sense of purpose. "I hope you've enjoyed this journey with me," he says, a warm smile playing at the corners of his lips. "And I hope you'll join me again for more tales of mystery and adventure." With a graceful nod of his head, the storyteller extends his thanks to his audience, his words a heartfelt expression of gratitude for their time and attention. "Thank you for watching," he says, his voice filled with sincerity. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more stories like these. Until next time, my friends, may your days be filled with wonder and your nights be free of fear. And with that, the screen fades to black, leaving behind a sense of anticipation for the adventures yet to come.